Be sure to subscribe and like our channel. This is Queen City Videocast, formerly Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole. On podcast, you'll see us still as Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole. 6 years and still going, Zach. 6 years.
I know.
What's wrong with us? I know. What's wrong with us?
Or what's awesome about us? See?
You decide, everyone watching. You decide. It's totally up to you. So today, of course, to go with the theme that we had last week, but even go further along, we're going to summon demons with Rufus. Right on there. Maybe not on there. But we have Rufus Opus, who has been here on Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole. We would summon a demon on there.
We would.
We're crazy like that.
You know, I did not come prepared. I could do the 7 winds, but I can't do the I don't think I can do any demons today. Well, actually, I probably could. I might be able to put you
could.
Maybe.
We know that you're a talented individual who can handle this. I know. But actually, like, Rufus has been doing demon work since I've known him, which is over 10 years now.
Yeah.
And so he really kind of knows his stuff. And he has written a new book that's out by Nephilim Press. That's called...
Yeah, it's not really new
Goetic
anymore. Yeah. It's the last book. It was like a couple of years ago now. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was actually released.
But we were taking a pause on the show, so we'll just assume...
Oh, good. Yes. Yes, and I also took a pause in like promoting it, so we'll just pretend like, you know, that
we'll just assume
never happened.
We'll just
my
assume
latest
that
book, which was just released.
You know what? The truth is that everything from 2019 to now, everyone's gonna just put it into one slither of time that just doesn't exist.
They still refer to it as the before times. Like, I was in a meeting with like professionals at work. You know, I work in biotech, pharma, and I'm working with these professionals, and this lady says, in the before times, and I go, wait, what's the before times? Before what? And everybody was like, COVID. I'm like, oh my God, COVID, yeah. Of course, before COVID, you know, it's become
BC.
Like a cultural thing.
It's not before Christ.
It's
before
BC.
COVID.
Before COVID.
BC 19.
BC 9, right. I mean, there is kind of this notion that everything has changed now, and that's okay. It's just different. Who wants to go into work anyway?
Yeah, I'm thankful for that. So.
I don't have to spend an hour in traffic sitting there not doing anything. Who wants to do that? So,
yeah, and I wish we could continue to just sort of pursue where that was heading. You know, like, I thought everything was going great when we shifted towards working from home and relaxing, you know, some of the social constraints around things. I was excited about that. But then at the same time, like, the political stability of the global infrastructure went entirely down the fucking tubes, you know?
I moved to Canada for a reason, Rufus.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Ahead of the curve, before everything broke. I've already moved to Canada, so...
I'm not as far from British North Columbia as I used to be. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm in Washington now. I moved to Seattle, and it is so different here in a very liberal city than it is even in a liberal city in the Midwest. You know, I was in Minneapolis before that, and the politics are completely different in a more blue state for sure. But it's a frightening time right now. You know, we are moving since the Grand Conjunction. I don't understand astrology well enough to make anything but out of it. But since that Grand Conjunction hit, the whole world has shifted. You know, Putin went back on the offensive with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, and NATO is expanding for the first time in decades, you know, or however long it's been since Turkey or whatever, you know, and it's just the whole world is just under combustion, right? So
it's 1970s almost, right? Like, we have inflation.
Well, I mean, yeah,
we have the Soviet Union, like
Roe v. Wade,
trying to expand. Roe v. Wade,
Roe v.
all
Wade,
these things.
You know, the United States, we've got. I mean, you guys don't care as much, I'm sure. Being, I guess you probably
Well,
are a little worried because we're so close.
Yeah,
well, I'm
I
not a
know it's gonna
Canadian
spill
citizen,
up.
right? I'm not a Canadian citizen, so I'm still very worried about this. Should I have to go back, I'd be very, very worried about this.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be really nice to all the people that keep you there. Just man, it's unsafe here. I mean, it's less safe than it was 2 weeks ago. That's for sure. So I mean, it's going to be trying times. But on the plus side, within that, it's also you've got this overlay of like some of the most prosperous times for a lot of people in the economy that we've had in decades. Like joblessness is way down, and people are making more money, and that's why inflation was up so high, is because everybody had all this money that they'd saved up because they couldn't do anything all through COVID for 2 years, and they had all this money, and everything was super cheap for a minute, and everybody just dumped all this money on the economy, and it hired everybody back, and there's like all this cash too. So there's like all this prosperity on top of all this backdrop of everything going to hell. And it's a super confusing time right now. And it's super liminal. It's a very liminal state, which
One of the
which
things
is
I've kind of always thought is that as the social structures break down more, results-oriented magic works better because there's less constraints to hold it from working.
that's exactly where I was going with that. Right.
It's
Yeah,
a
you
lot.
zoomed right in with
It's
that.
harder to move things around when it's more ordered. When it's chaotic, when society is chaotic, it definitely seems like that isn't that I want anyone to suffer either. I don't want people to take that the wrong way.
No.
As a magician, I kind of take it. The world is perfect as it is,
Right.
but these are the things I want to change in my world.
Yeah.
But the world is
Well,
becoming a more chaotic and
Right.
dangerous place.
Yes.
Every creation myth starts with, in the beginning was chaos and the void, right? It's all chaos that order is made out of. The first the bin stone, whatever religious creation myth, out of chaos comes some kind of order. So it sucks to be in the chaos, but there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of room for improvement and for achieving a good reputation for yourself by pursuing honorable things in troubled times. This is where heroes are made and become more effective, right? As magicians, like you were saying, we have better access to the forces that are more easily manipulated by the spiritual forces. The demons. In my book, I talk about the spirits of place, the genius loci, and the spirits of the dead. I know you guys work a lot with the dead, right? I mean, with the
I mean, what's a good Saturday night without a cemetery visit, right?
Yep.
Well, have you guys noticed a big difference as the rest of the world is sort of going through chaos? Are you sensing it in the spirit world too? Is there a similar
from my
storm?
perspective, a lot of the issues with the dead is that there's too many that aren't properly buried and aren't cared for properly. So you have to sort of, as a voodoo priest, like for me, one of the things is to try to help the shards and kind of just elevate constantly, or try to release and leave. Go to wherever they're going to go. With COVID, there's a lot of people who, I don't know. It just seemed like they just didn't know. They knew they died, but they're like, really? This is, they had so much more to do. It's just so. And then there's people who are just angry about it, and those are the things you have to kind of try to remove from the environment and try to act as a filter almost, or like try to elevate them to not have them attached to people. And this is true with Zach too, who more often than not with acupuncture, there's been a steadily rise in what he would perceive as dad things that kind of attach to people because they got nowhere to go. And so then you just have to sort of help process them, get them to try to release their resentments and then, or their negative or even positive emotions, and just get them to kind of move to wherever they're going to go, whether that's back into the wheel or dissolving back to the source, whatever it is. Just a lot of acting to another patron of yours, that I remember, like Hermes, acting as a psychopomp to try to help them just deal with it and kind of move on. So a lot of times, like, you're not even asking for anything; you're just trying to get them to move on and listen, and then say, okay, move on. Maybe bring some good luck to our center in exchange, for us doing this. But even when you're doing healing work on people, there's so much more. People already have a lot of anxiety and fear, and then the dead have a lot of anxiety and fear. So it's a lot easier for those things to kind of attach to people. And it's not that it's not like it's curse work. It's not like they're cursed. That's not it. It's just a chaotic world allows more chaotic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like when you're walking through a rainstorm, you get wet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just part of. That's why liminal cultures like the first through the third centuries around Rome, when Rome was falling apart, everybody's drinking lead, the society's going to hell, everybody's really just almost as bad as things are now, right? Everybody turns to the PGM, all these spells on the walls, all the gods are mixed together in this big jumble, and the magicians are able to be super effective. And in our modern occult culture, the PGM is super popular right now, and a major slice of the occult culture. It's a major.
I wouldn't even know because, like you, I've been out of the mix for a while. Just getting back to the shows.
Yeah,
I can see why magicians want to gain control, so they'll threaten their gods. I don't know how well that works, but it's sort of.
Well, the PGM isn't most of it's not like that. Most of
it's not, but there's a fair amount of
there's a whole lot more to it that's more there's been more research into it where people have gone into the sort of the religious aspects of like Hecate and developed more of a system around some of the spells out of it that are all sort of interrelated. So it's super effective, and it's very deep and rich. It's just not. It's not all the PGM is not represented by the Hecate stuff, but the Hecate stuff is represented in the PG. Anyway, it's pretty cool. But I don't remember what we were talking about. Oh, we were talking about the dead, right?
Goetia.
And the dead, yeah.
So my wife is into Hecate very much, and we do a lot of Hecate work over the last year or so, and. The role of Hecate as a psychopomp is a big deal, right? So she's one of the things that she does is she leads these hordes of the dead behind her, right? And that's like one of the things that you can interact with spiritually are the undead souls that follow her. And Hermes Chthonios also has, he's rumored to have this. I picture him like, you remember Pigpen from Peanuts? He was always like, he'd walk around and he had this cloud of dirt around him everywhere he went. Anyway, I picture it like this swarm of flies following around someone, and like having Hecate or Hermes Chthonios walking around with these spirits following him around. That you can interact with them to help get like a familiar or something like that. But anyway, I feel like through that work, I kind of have a sense of sort of how the atmosphere is in between the worlds, because we do like I'm not nearly as a consistent practitioner as my wife is. She does every month. We have ritual to do now, and we have stuff to do at the full moon and the new moon, and often on the quarter and the thumbnail moons, and it's a very lunar led lifestyle, and it's fine. It's great. lots of magic gets done for sure. But I'm learning more about the whole.
This was the card that I put in front of me today, just so you know.
That's what he pulled.
Well, there we go. Yeah, the 28 Mansions, man, they are fascinating, and maybe that might even become my next book, or one of the next influences on my next books. But yeah, that's it's a lot of exposure to that liminal state between the worlds, and I feel like this the political struggles, the social pressures that we're experiencing. Just our emotional and spiritual things. It's all being reflected on the spiritual realms too. Like even in the realms of Goetia, like I worked with the four kings of the elemental, like Agrippa calls them the terrestrial, the four kings of the four elements, right? And it's like Edgen, Amamen, Payman, and Oriens. And it's their names without even seals. They're hard to kind of even begin to talk about. But I mean, I work with them, and I work with the spirits of place here in Washington. You can get in touch with them super easy because everything's so alive. Everything is just so much water and so much health and so little pollution. It's just, everything here is vibrant, and the spirits of the land are just like right on the edge of every park and every stream. And they still have salmon. You can see salmon spawning up a river here, and it's, we're talking about, like, I was shocked that there's still this kind of healthy environmental stuff going on in the background, like you used to see on TV when you were a kid, like it's actually still happening. I was so pleased to see that. But I mean,
in the spring we can see the salmon in Don Valley River.
Yeah, right beside us here. Yeah, people go
right
hunting for them up here.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the city, right next to. It's only about, I don't know what, like 3 blocks away where the river is, and
that's a
see
major
the salmon jumping upstream.
And they're big
cool.
too. They're like big.
Do you guys have a big occult presence there?
Not that we've found so far. But we're working to change that every single day at Queen City Curio. So, yeah. The thing is, though, this is a very multicultural city. And we are going to talk about the Goetia for everyone that I promise.
Sorry. I'm actually trying to.
But this is a multicultural city, so what looks like occultism here is not what passes for occultism in a more Anglo community. So we're in East Chinatown, right? And Zach is obviously not Anglo-Saxon. So what passes as... I know, aren't you surprised by that, Zach?
I know. It's news to me, man. It's news to me.
We make the joke that our store is essentially... it's the store from, I forgot his name, Ed Chen's store in Big Trouble in Little China. That's our clothes store, right? Because of where we're at. But that's much closer to the vibe in the city, right? There's many more per population. It's much more of an Asian area. It's much more of a mixed area, much more multicultural, much just a different vibe animism from a lot of citizens. What? Yeah. It's not more really like... Yeah, exactly. And people... do occult stuff, but they just don't
think about it.
It's not like the States, like it's not part of their identity. It's just, we do this a little bit here, I do this a little bit here, and it's a regular practice, but it's not, I do occult work, which is why, and this is kind of a tendency also in conjure communities. Like the official name of our store is not Queen City Curio Occult Store, it's Queen City Curio Apothecary and Curio Goods, which is traditional for a conjure store, or for a store that's traditional magic store for actual people from China or Japan or something like that. They wouldn't necessarily name it.
So that's the code. That's way.
Like the code word is apothecary.
Okay, so like
code word is apothecary, and in conjure community, Curio Goods.
Right.
Again, same, yeah.
It's like the bodega. Like if you go to the bodega or you go to the it's like that, right?
Right. Yeah. And generally speaking, the difference in
You know that they're going to have more than just groceries.
Yeah. Like the difference is like a bodega would usually have the Santeria stuff, but apothecary suggests we make our own stuff, which we actually do. So, so there's all these kind of nuances that are up here where maybe people have to get to know you first before they come and do stuff because it's it's just how it is. Like,
yeah. Well, signage and pass out flyers and shit. I don't know.
That's what we do. And we run the show, which people come to from the show. Sometimes they probably come here just because of the show, but that's okay. When we have a good show. When we have a bad show, we probably lose 5 people, right?
And then we gain
there's
10.
There's no accounting for taste. So, all right. So
when Zach picks a fight with somebody, we probably get 20 people come to the store.
Probably, actually.
Because outrage is king nowadays.
What kind of fights are you picking, Zach?
Don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see. Usually it's Buddhist Taoist ones.
Oh, okay.
Zach picks a lot of Buddhist Taoist fights.
It's more like they pick fights on me, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, really, peeps? Really? I just want to chill. Watch some Netflix, but no.
A Taoist in a fight. What do you do?
This is what you do. You're like,
just do the thing, right?
No, that's not what you do.
You got to do the egg shen thing, right?
The egg shen thing. Now I just need like the light. Right?
Yeah, I was watching that the other day. It turns out that there are people who have not seen that movie before.
Well, I know we joke around where I'm like, I need to get a rice hat just for jokes to see people's reaction on this. Just like the movie.
That'd be great. Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, a lot of things in Egg Shen's store we actually have in our store because they're Chinese medicine ingredients. So
that we do.
They actually are legitimately Chinese medicine ingredients.
Well, have you guys seen a lot of? I mean, is there like any kind of Goetic culture there that you've seen in your day-to-day
We're going
life
to start
there?
one.
We're going to
We are going to start
right.
it.
Okay.
And to bring that full today,
I
let's
know.
start right now because you have some interesting Goetic techniques. And
Yes, you do.
one of the
Right
things
on.
that, with collaborating with a lot of other people, that I saw you actually come to a similar conclusion that I did without reading the same authors, was the idea that you could use the brass vessels really were closer to spirit pots, which is much closer to an African traditional religion called Palo Mate, which uses not quite the same logic because they put everything in the Palo pot together and use the different Palo spirits as masks to dead. It's complicated, but the idea that you can hold the Goetia in pots. First of all, Zach has already seen this in my house.
Yep.
There's all these pots
Yes,
for
I have.
Goetia. I feel like that I didn't write about it, so you get credit.
You get the credit.
But you came up with this idea that the brass vessel is talking about a similar type of idea.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, about how you came to it, how you
I don't
grasped
remember
it.
exactly. I don't remember exactly how I arrived at that particular thing. I was part of the Solomonic Yahoo group, I believe, at the time, and there was a discussion going on about spirit pots in general and African traditions that had things like that. And Chris Bradford was a friend of mine who knew a lot about root work and hoodoo, and he gave me some insights into that and helped me understand some things. And there's a bunch of conversations going on about it in different places, and I just put 2 and 2 together, and I put it and someone brought it up and at the same time as I did, and we were, I don't know, it was all part and parcel of the community, and I think we just put it together. It worked. So
So one of the things, so what might, since I know you have a close affinity with, let's say, Boone, what might a spirit pot of Boone look like, or what might you put in it, and how might it be different than what's in classic Grimoires?
So, all right, so in the PGM, it talks about making a statue of a baboon-faced Hermes, so that you can put spells in its backpack, right? That include like magical seals and things, right? So this is sort of one of those things. It's an olive wood thing. This is from Alison Tchaikovsky, by the way. She has that available through Practical Occult. But yeah, I happen to have a box here full of Goetic seals, like a spirit pot, right? It's like if you go through the Lemegeton's Goetia, there's this picture of a brass vessel that has the inscription around it of some archangel names, and then a seal that you put on top, and it's used to actually contain the spirits within this vessel. And so there's that from the Lemegeton, but it's like if you read through it, you find it in the Arabian Nights, the Tales of 1001 Arabian Nights. There's the folklore in there of finding one of these spirit pots that have been sealed and breaking the seal, and that's how like Aladdin finds a genie or whatever, or some. It's not just rubbing a lamp that reveals a genie. It's these spirit pots. They used to actually be these things in the Middle Eastern cultures that existed, full of demons and whatnot, and people would find them and open them up, and that was a tradition within this. It's a hermetic sort of tradition of capturing spirits in pots. So if you look at those curse bowls that they used to find, there's in like Sumeria, and I can't remember how far back to be sure, but back in the Middle East, they used to find these curse pots that had all these inscriptions on the inside, and they'd be flipped over, and they're thought to have been used to contain these different demonic spirits. And the theory was that they were like to trap them and keep them away from other people. But the conjecture was that maybe that wasn't exactly right. What if it was just to give them a place to live through which you could interact with them? And that's how the idea of the spirit pot came into being, because that works more like the way the spirit pot in hoodoo is used, and the way like the head. What's the pot that has like the bones? Is that the spirit pot with the bones?
That's the Palo pot. Yeah,
the Palo pot, right? So the Palo pot is like the model that was sort of.
That's not the real name for people. I forgot the name, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So whatever that is, that's the model that was sort of adopted and I don't want to say appropriated, but it was basically appropriated without regard to the cultural
so
traditions.
Rufus, how does it feel to be a chaos magician?
Yeah, right. I mean,
yeah, how does it feel to be a chaos magician?
We should talk about that sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my
I'm just
God.
kidding.
So
I
totally
I did the same thing, but I totally
I'm a hermeticist, right? I'm a hermeticist, but like when you look at what hermetics is, it's basically chaos magic, right? I mean, it's basically the same fucking thing. And it always has been.
This
right?
coming from the guy 6 years ago said we're all full of shit.
You're full of shit. I didn't say you weren't full of shit. That doesn't mean you're not. Just because you're like me doesn't mean you're not full. It means, in fact, the opposite. I didn't say I wasn't full of shit, too. Anyway, the thing is, what was the thing? Oh, spirit pots. We were talking about spirit pots. I don't remember what we were talking about with spirit pots.
So you're talking about spirit pots.
Yeah, like as a way to interact with a spirit, right? And just sort of like be its physical manifestation. And somebody compared it to like living in a penthouse versus living like a seal is living in a really nice apartment, but living in a spirit pot is more like living in a penthouse. And so you guys ever hear of this author named Silver Ravenwolf?
We have indeed heard of
You've
Silver
heard of
Ravenwolf.
So Silver Ravenwolf wrote this book on angel magic at one point. And it's actually about planetary angel magic. It includes planetary angel magic. And it talks about building these angel houses in it, right? That are almost akin to these angel versions of spirit pots. And the idea, I read it after we'd already developed this idea for spirit pots. I was reading this book, and I was like, holy shit, this is actually really good. This is really good research. And the methodologies are all exactly what people are doing anyway. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. So anyway, it turns out that Silver Ravenwolf wrote a really good angel magic book once. Amongst other things that she did in her life.
So, I mean, back in Columbus, when I lived in Columbus, Ohio, I would work with this guy called Shadow, which if he watches, hey, Shadow. And Shadow actually knew Silver Ravenwolf personally before she became popular, because she originally started in Ohio. And she knows what she's doing. This is just another type of thing of don't quite judge the authors quite so harshly because of one bad book that she made money on. Probably Dancing with Dragons was the book that did her in, actually.
I forgot she did that one.
Oh, whoops!
I didn't. Dancing with Dragons.
But she apparently did know her stuff. And
all right. But Raven Grimaldi wrote the book called How to Make Your Own Wicca, right? So, I mean, that was like the epitome of selling out Wicca. Was like how to make your own Wicca. It was like just pick your own symbol set and then apply it to this framework. And
well, I mean, I told him, hey, isn't this chaos magic? I said that to him too. But in some ideas also, though, you do, in addition, I mean, the spirit pot thing was something I've been doing for years. But then I'm initiated voodoo priest, so, and I do conjure work, so I came to the conclusion that the Goetia literally meant what it was saying, that they said after you do the summoning, when you usually give the dismissal, like come when I call, or, leave in friendship or come whenever I call, literally meant that the initial contact was initiatory rite to introduce you to the demon. Everything after the fact is sort of like, bro, here's your offering. We already made our connection. Right. The summoning isn't exactly the same. And then I kind of take a weird space-time kind of analogy for why you need a spirit pot or the seal, is they don't exist in the same space-time, and the seal makes them have a juncture point to understand where we are in space-time, that they don't usually understand that from the ether. And that's why you can that's why you can kind of have multiple spirits at the same time, everything, because there's no time, and
they don't need time and space the way we do.
Right. So they don't know how to get to the time and space where you're at, except through the magician.
Okay, but time is a function of gravity, right?
Is it? It's a kind of a function of gravity and light. More like light.
So, thing is where does the spiritual continuum exist? Is it within a realm impacted by gravity? Because then, if so, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm thinking this is good. I was thinking
this is good.
I don't think so, but we can experiment with this.
Let's see. I don't know how
we can create sort of artificial gravity fields. And then
the thing is, if we can't test it, we can make up whatever bullshit we want to about it. If you start making it testable and create like measurable key point indicators, we're not going to be able to just theorize whatever we want around it.
Old school chaos magician. I actually test my magic. If I have a theory, I'll go try to figure out the physics and test it.
Good news for you.
What?
Everybody forgot that everybody forgot that magic had to work in the last like 10 years. Like
I
somehow,
noticed.
somewhere,
I've
something
noticed.
happened. Something happened where all of a sudden you could just say whatever the fuck, and nobody gives a shit. Like everybody's just like, and you're like, wait, that doesn't really work though, does it? Yeah, and they're like, what do you mean it doesn't work? I'm like, when you do this, you get those results. And
I
they're
feel
like,
like
no, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like I got an MBA, busted my ass, started teaching data science, started getting back to things, and I'm like, what the fuck? I have to say the same exact things I said 10 years ago. Like, you got to actually get results.
And it's new, and it sounds like, and the old people that already like heard you say it before are like, oh yeah, it's good to hear you saying it again. And you're like, oh my god, I don't even want to say it
actually,
again.
Our customers
I don't
here
have to say it
really our customers here who come in generally resonate with the idea, like, we're talking about actually getting results. We believe you can get life-changing effects, not just from magic, but from metaphysical energy work and stuff like that for healing. Like, it's not just come here and have an experience. People get better. That's what we believe. That's what our customers believe, and they're happy to see that we're level-headed about that.
That's super, like, that's very insulting to some people who need to stay sick. They need to be okay with being well. Well can't be used as a weapon against them. Wellness has to be, I don't know how to put it. Like, you can't suggest that there's anything wrong with them by saying that things could be better. If you say something's better, it's offensive. You know, like if you say
I don't know
you could improve yourself with the great work. The great work is a way of transforming yourself into a better person. Why do I need to be a better person? What's wrong with me? I didn't sin. That's Christian. You know, and it's like, wait, no, I didn't say that. I just, you know, it's not offensive to want to improve oneself. I don't think it shouldn't be, you know, but there are some people that are offended by that now.
I don't think that would be the people who come here. I think the people here know that we are compassionate too, in that, honestly, both of us have fallen down in different times, but all we can do is walk forward, and that's what we tell people. So you had a broken leg, or so your stress got to you, and you have this thing. All you can do is walk forward from there, and we'll support you every step of the way. And that's kind of a compassionate way to say that. Like, you know, it's just
absolutely.
It's not belittling them or saying that they're not good enough. It's saying, if you want to, all we can do is walk forward, and that's up to you.
Right. I'm not talking about that. You're talking about actually healing people who are sick, who have physical illnesses.
I don't necessarily.
You're talking about helping people that are trying to get help, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about people who stay on the internet and complain about things. Different people
those are
entirely.
Generally,
I'm not talking about
we can clearly demark. Those aren't usually our customers. So.
Those are not your customers I'm talking about in any way, shape, or form. If they get up away from the keyboard, that's not what I'm talking about.
One interesting thing to kind of bring back about this self-work and the greater work. One thing to bring it back, since we've been all over the place today, right? To bring it back to the new book that will, after COVID, that will just say BC, is this idea, which I have never seen before, expressed clearly, of the magical circle as actually a tool of self improvement, or magical self improvement and self work.
Initiation, it's a tool of initiation. Like as you're working through the process of drawing the magical circle. If you go into the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Lemegetons, the Book of Goetia, there's a magical circle in there that is based on Agrippa's scale of the number 10. And it has around the outside edge of it the names of each of the 10 spheres, the archangel of the sphere, the symbol of of that sphere, I think the god name of it, and the symbol of it. I think I can't remember all of the different things, but it had like something that for each sphere you had to like walk through the yud, the hey, the vav, and the hey of each aspect of it according to Agrippa's Kabbalah, right? So it's consistent with that information. And as you're tracing this out, I argue in the book that as you're writing these things down, the spirits are conjured to the magician. And if you've worked with Goetia before, if you've ever had to draw the seals of the Lemegeton's Goetia, you know that as you draw them a couple times, you have to draw them a few times to practice. And as you're practicing drawing the spirit seals, I believe you can start to feel the spirits in the room with you. You know, they start to interact with you. They start to influence your sphere. They're called as you're directing your attention to the symbols that represent them. You know, and that creates a resonance that they respond to, or whatever, however you want to interpret that. It draws the spirit's attention into the room. And then by the time you do the conjuration, they're just like stepping through and saying hi, you know, because they've already been drawn by all the effort that you put into creating their symbol. So in the same way,
this is actually, I think, more controversial than I would totally agree with you to the point that I know. Gasp that I would totally agree with you on this from our own. I mean, literally, if you watch the sponsors part of Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole, literally did all 7 planetary angels for months and walked through it and did sort of our workshops on all of them. And every time it's there, and you could kind of feel the presence of the room changing. I think it's kind of controversial because no one really accepts that, like that there's this linear before and after separation, but in a way, it sort of works much closer to how voodoo works. When we're drawing the Vebes, it takes a lot to prevent getting possessed, right? Because we're intimate with those spirits.
It does very much, even with archangels. The archangels, like drawing out the symbol of the archangel of the spirit Michael, you know, it's the story of Christ's descent into matter, existence on earth, ascent to heaven, and return and rulership, as spelled out in a certain sect of Christianity that was popular in one part of the places where they were making these symbols at the time, right? And you can trace it back to a certain like part of Christianity that was working underground with occultists. Anyway, you can't help but tell a whole story in a symbol, right? And you're tapping into a very specific energy set or whatever that is going to draw a very specific energy, a very specific entity, you know? And I think that's why there's so many different ways to work with the Goetia, you know. But getting back to the magic circle, if you do the full 9-foot circle, you're creating a 9-foot talisman that you're very carefully inscribing repeatedly each of the symbols of the spheres to build a complete representation of the 10 spheres of the universe around you, and then the 4 elemental spheres around you, which are the material world. So you've got the fixed stars, the 7 planets, and then the 4 elements around the magician in the center, and then this triangle manifestation outside the circle where you're calling the spirit. You've created a position where the magician is standing in the middle of the universe, in the same way that if you look at the universe card in the Thoth deck, or the Hierophant card in the Thoth deck, or any of the cards in the Thoth deck that have the 4 beasts on the 4 corners, it shows an entity in the middle. But like in the universe card, it shows the woman dancing around the pole, which is the masculine and feminine interacting together to generate the universe. And behind her, you see the zodiac being projected through her into this material world through the mouths of the 4 elements, right? So you've got this symbolic set of the magician standing in the middle of these 4 elements and the zodiac around them, and it represents you in the microcosm and the macrocosm, that fulcrum, you know, and you've built that into being around you. You've got this 9-foot circle in the real world that represents this energy that has placed you at the center of the universe and empowered you. And then you're going to sit there from this stance where you've built your universe around you. You're going to command these spirits in the names of God to appear before you, right? It's a very intense thing, you know, but Yeah, I think you can get the same effects just by drawing out a few times. No, I don't think you have to draw the whole 9-foot
But
circle.
in a way, the reason this is controversial, and I'm saying that having seen lots of ceremonial magicians on the internet, is that in a way, like the whole perception that you have articulated about the drawing of the circle, which would sound closer to a Buddhist mandala or a veve or something that is a temporary talisman on the ground, that the act of drawing it on the ground is in fact like a magical act, like that you should approach that as a magical act, not as a prerequisite to a magical act, right? That's the key difference. Like you might spend 3 or 4 or 5 days drawing that out on the ground because they're all each little. Well, we all know that's not the case, and it's not the case when you read the literature. That's why I said it would be controversial. If you spent 5 days understanding that each piece of this circle you're laying down for bigger working is its own right, I think that would change how a lot of ceremonial magicians actually do ceremonial magic. It wouldn't be so dead feeling to them.
Also, I am going to suggest, and this part might actually piss some people off, I would suggest that the reason so many ceremonialists are so dead is because they read the books and they think about the books and they think about what they think about the books and what other people think about the books, but they don't draw the circles, because drawing the circles is an initiatory rite, and it creates a vibrancy in their conversations yes.
Send your hate mail to Rufus Opus at gmail.com.
Zach was volunteering earlier for all of the fighting. He was going to do all of the fighting for us.
On the Eastern Sphere. On the Eastern Sphere.
Right. I'm actually... Wait, what's the name of the town you guys are in again?
Toronto.
That's exactly where
the
I
biggest
am
city
too.
of Toronto.
I'm also in Toronto. I might have said Seattle, but I meant Toronto.
No, actually, I think that's fundamentally true. No, I
think a lot of
I've
times
done a lot of ceremonial magic
as if they've done magic.
Yeah, I've done
when you actually draw out the circles, it changes you. When you've been through an initiation, I've been having this conversation with some friends of mine who are still in the OTO, that the OTO's initiations are supposed to create in a person an effect. That's what an OTO is for. Any initiatory body is designed around a concept, and the initiations along the path from the beginning to the end are supposed to lead towards a thing, right? That's what initiation systems are for, whether it's an Orphic initiation system or an OTO or Golden Dawn or whatever. It's supposed to be transforming the person along the way into something else, right? And I think that in the Goetia, when you do the circle, just doing the circle transforms you into something else. Doing any of the circles. Arundel Overman has been posting all these different magical circles from all these different systems from all across the Middle Ages to now, and it's like, it's really neat to watch him do it, because I mean, a lot of these things I've been familiar with for years, but I take them for granted, and he posts them as if they're all brand new information to people in this Goetia study group or whatever it's called, and it's just like, it's great to see that people are eating it up, and actually being exposed to it. But all of the different circles perform an initiatory function. They perform something that is very effective within the system to accomplish something, and you can see how the Lemegeton's approach to initiation for the magician is based on a relationship to Agrippa's interpretation of Neoplatonism within a sect of the 15th century occult, just called, right? I don't know how accurate it is or whatever, but it's very similar to it, and it empowers the magician in a very similar way to that using the rest of the tables of Agrippa do. So it's pretty cool. It's a neat system how it all works together.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a thing about this. It's like, we're talking about it, and like I said, I don't disagree that most a lot of ceremonial magicians just read. Mm-hmm. I think the books kind of, you're getting to what I've said for a while. The books go out the window the minute you start drawing the circle. as in the experience. It doesn't encapsulate the experience, actually.
Right, but I mean, I think your experiences probably, if your books and your experiences aren't reflecting one another, your books are probably the wrong books. But for the most part, my experiences and my books tend to reflect each other. I mean,
But
like,
that's
I don't know if
because
it's
you actually
because
did
I
them
read
and
it
then
and
you wrote the
expect it and
books.
study it, or oh yeah, but I mean other people's books. Like, I've actually been reading other people's books lately. Don't tell anyone.
No one will know. It's a secret on
I
YouTube.
No, it's just a live radio.
It's
Who would
awful.
possibly hear us? Like,
Oh my God, I'm having other people's thoughts entertained in my own head. It's so strange. I tell you what.
There
one
is
of
a
the things
triangle
too-
for that.
one of the things
Recovering
that,
Narcissist the Club.
whoa.
Oh.
One of the things is you use a different method than even Lemegeton, because you're using the method you use for the calling the planetary spheres for your Goetia, which is slightly different than, say, like a demometry or even some other methods of ceremonial magic.
Yeah, it's so the system is based on Trithemius's art of drawing spirits into crystals. It's the DSIC is how they refer to it online a lot. It's a modified form of it, and then it's been modified again, and it's consistent with the style of conjuration used in the 16th century, but it's not an exact duplicate. It's based on actually my own misunderstanding of the original manuscript. I didn't realize that what they were trying to say with the circle and everything, and I put the circle and triangle together. It works great. It's consistent with what it says in the book, and it definitely meets what was being described. It just was not what was perhaps necessarily meant. So regardless, it turns out to be an effective way to conjure spirits. And in the book, I talk about using it as a way to talk to both the dead and your spirits of location, because instead of like having in the Lemegeton, you create a circle around you and the spirits outside of it. In the Trithemian system, the triangle's in the middle and the circle's around it, and the magician's on the outside, so that it's still the universe and then the triangle and the magician. It's just inverted. It's a different way of doing the same thing. So, but anyway, it's a nifty little system. The reason I recommend it is because it's so easy. It's just drawing a circle, and you can do it with a pen and paper and a stick of incense and a candle. You don't need a ton of equipment, and it's a super effective way that is entirely consistent with what your average magician would be expected to do in the 16th century, right? And it's entirely consistent with that, and it works with all the 16th century spirits, including the demons. And it's probably something that was invented by Francis Barrett. It's attributed to Trithemius, but it's probably a creation of it's based on things from the fourth book of Agrippa, which is probably a Francis Barrett recreation, if I remember right. And I haven't studied all the details on this for years, so please, if it turns out that I'm misciting my sources, I apologize. But my brain is not what it used to be, for sure, and I'm happy to even be able to make sentences some days. So I'm grateful for
it's true.
what I got.
True for all of us. So don't give anyone hate mail for that, because that's the
Right.
side. We're all
So anyway.
cybernetic individuals. We have the internet. We could go look up the history.
Exactly. I've got my memory banks is all on sacredtext.com. Basically, and esotericarchives.com. Those are, if you don't have those, then you're basically, what's the point of breathing? But anyway, what else? What were we talking about? We were talking about the art of drawing spirits into crystals. Yeah. Anyway, it's a super effective way that I think every magician should be able to conjure spirits, because for me, one of the big eye openers for me was that doing conjure magic was the most effective way of doing magic, because I had done sort of like a different approach of chaos magic, which was much more simplified. The more egregious, the stuff that gets mocked most days on the internet by people who don't really spend a lot of time understanding what chaos magic really is. I spent a lot of time with that doing ineffective methods of what was called chaos magic, which was basically just wishful thinking. And I had about as much success as people have with The Secret and as they have with New Thought and name it and claim it philosophy in Christianity and prosperity gospel in Christianity and that kind of thing. I had just about as much success.
I will say, you can make all of those different philosophies work with some tweaking. It just takes some effort.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as in, the methodologies are flawed. Once you fix the methodologies, the philosophies can be implemented. But that is the original idea of chaos magic, is that if your methodologies are flawed, change them. Because the data is not supporting you. The data is not supporting your continued work, essentially.
Right. And, well, anyway, I was an immature person at the time, and I had immature experiences as a result. So it just kind of goes hand in hand with what you'd expect. So, but when I got into
which is almost
magic,
like a life case study for Hermeticism. I was an immature person. I got immature results at the time.
And then somehow
mirror within, mirror without.
I got better at everything.
You got better at everything. Nice.
It's true. Oh my God. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, why am I so much better than I used to be at any of these things about 20 years ago? I'm like, oh, because I'm 20 years older and I'm, wow.
Asking for better shit.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, my boss at my day job says to me the other day, people have a meeting with you and I'll walk away with them and I'll have this level of information. You'll walk away with 75% more than they have, than I have. And we have meetings after a meeting where she basically goes through and I tell her everything that I got from the person and what my assessment of the situation was based on my read, and it's, 20 years of initiation, of magical practice, of understanding process, of business experience, of IT experience, support experience, cold reading, tarot readings, voice understanding, all the different things that go into being a product of the Western occult mystery tradition, and I'm telling her, trying to explain to her that I basically understand what they're doing because I can psychically mimic their facial expressions and understand what they're resonating at, right? And it's like, how do I explain that that's what happened because of 20 years of the changes I've been through, so, but
you drop off a grimoire, a Goetic Grimoire on her desk and say, well, here's some, hobby reading for you on the weekend.
Yeah. Well, I think Goetia should be some part of everybody's practice. I think everybody should have a little bit of theurgy, a little bit of some gods that they worship. I think they should do some planetary stuff, and they should also have some material spirits that they're working out with on the horizontal. And I think that's where Goetia fits in. Gives you a nice set of terrestrial management operators. And I think the more I learn about them, the more I think that they're actually aerial spirits. They're just sort of existing. I know they're terrestrial, but the things that they impact things and the way that they impact things, it seems like it's all through air. But that might also be because I've been working with the seven winds a lot, so they have an influence. Everything bleeds together. Whatever you're paying attention to, it's like, oh, that explains everything. Well, this week.
So do you have anything coming up in the near future? Like I kind of challenge you to do some classes, and we have a little bet that we
have a little barter going on.
Right. The gentleman's agreement.
Would you like to outline the bet?
All right. The bet is that one of us finishes a book by the end of the year. Right. As many books as we can finish by the end of the year.
It's one, okay? It's one. Just stop. Let's get past one. Like it's one. No. It's not as many as we can finish. Like, who are we kidding? It's been 3 years since you wrote a book, and before that, it was a whole lot of years.
I've I've got like 15 bullet lists of things that I've started that I've never followed up on. I've got one that's
I've got like
at least
20. Zach has seen 23 to 4 chapters, books that are all done. They're just 3 chapters with no fluff. And I'm just like, I don't feel like fluffing them up to get 150 pages. Like,
well, see,
I don't want to teach all the basics again. I just don't want to go through and rewrite all the basics.
Well, see, my
get
thing
to the point that this is interesting, which is the last 3 chapters is the interesting part. I just don't want to cover exactly what I covered in Hands-On Chaos Magic again to fill this in to get people up to speed, because you can't assume people are going to get up to speed.
Half my stuff sounds insane because it's just like you can't really talk about some of the things that you see in the highest heavens, right? Because it's just, weed's legal here, and I can just get really high all the time and do magic, and this is not serious occultism, guys. This is just having a really good time with life.
Well, I can actually say that you can put a metric to mysticism too, which mystics hate me saying this, but it's not like it's here's your mysticism and nothing happens. You can measure your behavioral changes based on how other people perceive you based upon a mystical experience. If there's no change to your personality elements, there's no mystical experience. Essentially, it's subjective garbage at that point. Like, so you can actually put together, when you study psychology, better metrics to say, no, this mysticism is not bullshit. It actually worked. Because, because I know you do all the business stuff like I do, being a manager or IT manager or stuff like that. You do 360 feedback on people, which you can get 360 feedback free tools. You can actually see that other people are noticing the differences after a mystical experience. That's a common business tool. If you don't know what it is, look up 360 feedback. Many people in a professional life already probably use it or have been part of it. But you can do that as a person and get 360 feedback just on how you're interacting with people. And guess what? After a mystical experience, you can measure a statistical valid change in the behavior that comes out before and after your attempted mystical experience. So I know that's poo-poo. Everyone on TikTok and the internet will hate me because I'm saying you can actually test the results of mystical experiences because you can test the observable differences in how people are perceiving you. But guess what? I try to test my magic. So,
I can't believe anybody argues with you about things.
They do. Because they don't want to have it tested, It's easier when you don't have to test things.
I don't know. I think it's easier just to assume that everybody agrees with you and then looks shocked and amazed when they have anything like an opposite. What do you mean? My favorite comment this week was, everybody's not a hermeticist, Josh. And I'm like, well,
in my world, they are.
Talking to you.
It's all right. Everyone's a chaos magician in my world, right?
Right. And maybe sometimes you're talking to chaos magicians and you're talking from your chaos magician standpoint. And, maybe the hoodoo community doesn't need to take it as if you're talking to them right then, and they're like, hey, this doesn't apply to me. And you're like, yeah, you're doing why? It's because it's not about you. So. Anyway.
Well, I just like testing things, but you can test the mystical experience. I say that because it's such a misnomer that people assume you cannot test any mystical experiences. So what I'm saying is your 7 wins experiences can be tested. Mm-hmm. It just may have results that you don't expect. Like, there's still going to be movement on some personality measures.
It's got other people observe. Got repeatable results. The 7 wins from Picatrix. This is what I made, right? It's just a little freaking piece of like tinfoil and some paper, and like in a little thing, and it was super easy to make, and I did it according to the ritual and the Picatrix, and it moves sometimes, like you can see swirling things in it, and you just pass it through the incense, and you call on the 7 winds, and you ask it things, and it will. I've had consistently repeatable results. Like you ask it information, and anything that happens between the earth and the heavens is communicated, like because everything that touches the wind, everything that vibrates these intelligences are able to be aware of, right? And it does exactly like it says in the book. And it's like, wow, it's a fascinating piece of technology. It's not, I mean, I don't know. It's very interesting, especially overlaid with like Zeus and how he rules through the winds and stuff. So it's a fascinating whole approach to things. Anyway, but the mystical experiences definitely are measurable. Yes, I'm sorry to have gone down the rabbit hole on that one.
No, well, we are deeper down the rabbit hole, so
We are, dude.
Yeah. Nice way of saying
But
we
do
get
you have
into the
any-
weeds sometimes.
That's okay. That's okay. But do you have anything coming up? Like any events? I know you were
Not
talking
really,
about
no. I'm
maybe.
still, I mean, eventually,
some
probably
classes.
soon. I'm kind of waiting till the end of summer to like this summer. I wanted to get married. I just got married. I'm getting focused more on some writing projects. I have some stuff in works for by the end of the year, and I've got some decisions to make about what I want to do with the rest of my life. You know, that kind of thing. Who I want to be and what levels of participation I want to have with everything around me. I'm just sort of taking it as it comes and whatnot. So yeah, you know, nothing major planned, but we'll see where things go.
Very good. Very
There you
good.
go.
There you go. Soon. And we still have the bet that I'll finish my book first.
Yes. there
Oh
is
yeah, I
that.
definitely
Don't let me
have. I
lose
have a
this
couple
bet.
books I gotta write. Yeah, you know,
Don't let me
I realized the
don't
other
let me
day
lose
that
this bet.
You
No,
got
yeah.
this.
Well-
You got this.
he's gonna forget.
Damn. Ours.
Be
And speaking of workshops, as people know, although we have the public show for Queen City Curio, you know, we do the private shows, which is just workshops every week, every other week. What's the next one, Zach?
Next one's tomorrow for the throat chakra. So that's
Right?
going
So
to be
we're going
July
through the
3rd.
chakras right now. July 3rd, we're going to go through the throat chakra. And if you know, we've been going through all the chakras. July 3rd. Right, said like Darth Vader, too.
It's gotta be down in the throat chakra.
There you go. So we went through all the chakras so far. As soon as we get through the chakras, the next set of workshops will be the Western Elemental Forces, of which we might have some nice Barden materials thrown in there for you.
Yes.
You guys do
At Queen
the.
City Curio.
Have you ever done the throat chakra conjuration of spirits? Where you picture like a blue light in your throat chakra with a golden symbol of the spirit.
Oh,
that you
yeah,
want
I've
to talk
done that.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you do that before you go to sleep, and it's yeah. Are you gonna talk about that in your throat chakra class, or?
No, it's just the basics. And just some stones and some herbs and a tea to kind of boost your throat chakra and how to know whether it's out of balance and how to fix it. But maybe we could throw that in for tomorrow.
Yes.
So maybe we will. Now we're inspired. And then after we get through the elements, we're going to go as per request. It won't be one tarot card per show, per our workshop, but it'll be a couple per request of all the people coming to the store of us to do a more intensive tarot magic. We will do it, or Zach has instructed or demanded or asked or
Or all
actually
the above.
bribed me to do it, so I will do it, and go through both the divinatory and evocational or enchantment side of tarot magic. Because the tarot that we're going to cover is not one directional. It's not just divinational. So that's all the things happening in Queen City. You asked every 2 weeks. If you're a sponsor, that's what you get. So come on. There's over 40 or 50 workshops that we have recorded for sponsors that you have access to all of them already. So come on by. Queen City Curio. We run them every 2 weeks on Sunday. We are going to start, although we have to have masks still because we're a medical facility. Acupuncture being medical in Toronto. But we are going to open it up so you can come back in person and come here every Sunday and for the sponsors who also sponsor Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole and Queen City Curio Videocast. You already know that we're going to start having full day just come here and make crafts soon. Like, we're almost ready. The first one will be a candle making workshop where you can come and just buy the supplies from us and make some candles. So come on by, and that'll be like open most of the Sunday because we're going to make our own stock for our own store. So you can come here and just kind of participate if you're a sponsor. So you get a lot from being a sponsor.
That
So
you do.
be a sponsor become a sponsor of Deeper Down in Queen City and get a lot of stuff. And with that, everyone stay healthy, stay well, and try to find happiness in all the areas of life you can. Have a great night, everyone. This is Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole, Queen City Curio Videocast. Signing out, wishing you best. Just stay on for a second, Rufus.